succession, who is going to be taking my place, and let's do it in an organized manner, and let's do it in the next couple of years, and let's do it, so everybody is in tune. Because one of the things that, for example, I would be very disappointed, and that sometimes happens. I recognize, even though that is not the case as much, but at one time, it was very important for me to be here because I was like the glue that hold everything together and so forth.
I'm sure you still are.
But one of the things that I want to see is that when I leave, I would be very disappointed. For example, if you tell me 2 or 3 years or 4 years after I leave that because of infighting and so forth, the whole thing crumbles or something. So I will hate to see that. I think I want to see some continuity. So way after I'm gone, somebody saying, who organized this? Oh, I think Otto Merida back in '78 or something. So, but we're still here, and the organization is here, and the programs that we are doing now through the Latin Chamber of Commerce and through the foundation continues to be here for many years to come.
Where do you see yourself after the transition?
Well, what I intend to do is I still going to be, I probably will be, if health-wise I continue to have a good health, I will probably be involved, be an advisor, but be a consultant for other things that I want to do. I have an interest, for example, in having more minority firms, having concessions at the airport, for example. For example, I visited Cuba back in 2009. And I went with a group of Cubans from Miami that were selling food to Cuba and agricultural products to Cuba. So I went to that particular event. I had the occasion by doing that to be able to visit my home in Cuba, in Havana, and also my grandparents. They are no longer there, of course, but I wanted to go back to my house. So I knock on the door, the people that live there say, can you allow me to see inside? And they allow me to see inside too.
Please tell us about your service to the Las Vegas Housing Authority.
Well, that one, that was I spent like around 10 years, 11 years with them, as a commissioner. And I think our proudest moment, one of the things was there was a development. It was really that was full of drug addicts and shooting and so forth, right there in Martin Luther King and Lake Mead, and we were able to close those particular apartments, and then eventually, if you go by, they're now beautiful homes that are gated, that that was developed by Frank Hawkins, that was a former city councilman and also a former. He was one of the. He was famous originally because he was a running back for out of Reno, University of Reno, that ran in Oakland, and we were able to actually demolish all that property and build homes there. And that's how, if you look at you Google, you will see something called the Otto Merida Way, and that's a street that he named after me, in that development that we have there in Lake Mead and Martin Luther King. And also out of that, after 10 years, maybe like 3 or 4 years ago, the Housing Authority, in a development that happened, that was built between private and public monies, they named that particular development Otto Merida Village, and that is on Honolulu, 50 Honolulu in Las Vegas, by Charleston. And
60 properties there?
It's at 60 homes actually that were built there. So that was it was at the same time a difficult thing to do. Sometimes we had a very hostile audience, that because sometimes we will have to evict people, or we have to close homes because they were full of riddle by gangsters and gangs and shootings and so forth. But I think it has been cleaned up quite a bit in the last few years.
Please tell us about the Nevada Public Works Board.
Public Works was a very interesting board, because one of the things that we will do is we will get proposals from all the different agencies about the needs for buildings that they need in order to be able to get them built, and also one of the problems that we had for many years in the state is that we have a problem of leaking. The roof will leak and especially up north, when they have snow and so forth, and we didn't have a way by which we will maintain those buildings because we didn't have any money. So one of the things that we created at that time was the board went ahead and asked for more money to be able to have a maintenance program that will run not only for 1 year, but ongoing, to be able to fix many of our buildings, especially up north, especially the roof. But it was a very interesting board because you could travel around the country, around the state, be able to see the needs, and we have the needs for more jails, for example, or be able to look at some of the buildings that were being deteriorated, or request for new buildings and so forth. So we will recommend to the governor to put that in the upcoming budget, for example, for new buildings or new construction.
How did you get appointed to these boards? How did you come to the attention of the person who selected the people?
Well, what happened is, and in many instances, all of those particular jobs were appointed by the governors, and I got they were all of those individuals, where I was appointed because of my involvement
in the Republican Party.
No, not so much in the Republican Party, but also my involvement with the Latin Chamber of Commerce in many committees that I attended, meetings that I attended, and so forth, where people will say, okay, we're looking for somebody to do this, and then we say, why don't you go ahead and talk to Mr. Merida? Maybe he might have an interest in serving in this particular board, and that's how it happened. And I thought it was a very good experience. The judicial, the public works, the economic development, that I think all of those, I remember Kenny Wing coming to see me at the chamber, when we were over in 7th Street, the governor. Kenny Wing was a very interesting man, he came by and said, I think I'm going to move you from this board to the economic development board because it makes more sense for you to be in there. And that's how I end up for 6 years in the economic development commission.
Why did they name that particular housing project after you?
Gary Reese was a city councilman for a number of years. He was a mayor pro tem. He just left the city council a year ago. And originally, that particular development was going to be named after his wife that had passed away. And then he called me, maybe like a year and a half before that happened. That before actually they started building that particular, and they said, Otto, I'm going to do this, and I hope you don't mind. I don't want my wife to be named after this project. I don't think she was involved in any of these things. You did. You put a lot of time and effort into the housing authority. I'm going to propose to the city of Las Vegas and the housing authority because at that time it was the city of Las Vegas housing authority. And the people that appointed those commissions were people from the city of Las Vegas. I want to propose to them that we change the name of that particular project to Otto Merida, and that's how we end up. I end up having Otto Merida, the project after Otto Merida.
What was the first service project you remember working on in your life?
Oh, I think probably as a Vista volunteer working with poor people in Leominster and Fitchburg. That was a long time ago, but that's one of the things. We used to make $25 a week, and they would put it on the side. So you will have some money when you came out of that particular program. And then we would live with the families used to give us the food and housing, all of that. And I think it was rewarding. I think it gave me, which I still have, even though I got involved in business or trying to help a small business and so forth. Especially these days that we had a recession and people really lost quite a bit. To be sensitive to what's going on in the community, in the state, in the country. I think it's very important that we do something for our fellow being, and that's what. And I think the things that we're doing, trying to get people jobs, trying to convince an employer to hire that individual that have the skills, and then we will help your employer now that you are having difficulty by paying part of that person's salary for a number of weeks, a number of months, is something that is worth pursuing.
Do you have a particular spiritual practice?
I don't. I think that's one of the things that really I lack. I don't have that type of, I think sometimes at home when, for example, I was married, my wife died in 2006. We were married for 32 years. And then now I live alone, I live, and sometimes, I look at my life and so forth, and then I sometimes go to church. I live very close to a Catholic church right there at the Pueblo, development. But I'm not into I'm not that spiritual.
One of our viewers was either traumatized by the faith group in which they were raised, or perhaps they weren't raised in any faith group at all. But they hear people talking about spirituality, a higher power, and all that, and they find that attractive. But maybe they have a strong resentment still. Is there a beginner's spiritual practice that you can suggest that might help them break through that shell they have?
I think one of the most important things that you can have, a person can have, is the relationships that he has, or she has, with other individuals that they meet at work or in social gathering and so forth. I think that's something that has helped me tremendously.
Neither of these two people has ever done anything for anyone or anything outside of their own narrowly defined self-interest, which they might include their children or whatever, but nothing else. No outside interest. You can speak to them either together or separately. Why would these two individuals want to be of service to someone or something other than themselves?
I think one of the problems that those two individuals will have, and I think they have to have a certain emptiness in their soul, as a human being. I think there is nothing more important, I think, aside from be a successful father, for example, a family man, or successful in terms of your jobs, or the job or your employment and so forth, of your relationship with your wife, and is that I think it's a certain emptiness if you don't contribute with other human beings to a cause, a definite purpose, and I think that's very important. I think if you don't do that I think it's a certain emptiness that you will have in your life, and I don't know how you will fulfill it. Maybe you can and so forth, but I think this is very important. Even if you are a very successful businessman, a very successful individual, a person, or you might have struggling, like you mentioned, and so forth. I think one of the things that you might be able to get out of that struggle is by being able to, even in that capacity where you are having a lot of problems, be able to get involved and do something for others, and I think all of that will pay back. I think you get it back, I think. I have always been I know that this is nothing that I'm saying that is new, but it's something that is true. That is true.
What could they expect, the same two viewers, to get out of being of service to someone or something else?
It's not so much that you expect anything back. I think that alone is very rewarding. When people, for example, I was talking, as a matter of fact, this happened just recently, where a friend of mine, that we talked quite a bit, he was saying that he went and helped, he was trying to sell a house to this individual and so forth, or sold the house, was trying to sell this house for this lady that her husband divorced her and so forth. Had a daughter with 3 kids that have come from California, and this person this lady was totally depressed. The lady that had 3 kids her daughter came from California, and she was now divorcing her husband, and she have also divorced her husband with 3 kids, and he was able to, at that time, he was going to sell a house, her house, and he met this lady, and then he brought this lady over here, for us to try to get her a job, and we have been very successful with this family, and now that family has a job, she has a job, and she rented an apartment. So I think that is very important. I think you can make the type of work that you have, even though in this case you are only like a broker or a real estate. You can really impact other human beings by the actions that you take, and be able to move and be able to have the relationships that you have created to be able to help others.
One of our viewers was inspired by what you've said, but they're afraid. They don't want to dive in head first. They'd like a, get your toesies wet kind of a service project. Is there something you could suggest for them?
Well, the only thing I could suggest is what we do. We have the Latin Chamber has a number of programs, all the way from business-related programs to we have committees. Get involved with us. Come and observe. Come and see what's going on in our. For example, we are having we have meetings on. We are going to be now placing, like I mentioned to you, we're going to be placing close to 200 kids in the work experiences. Be part of that committee. Be part of that group. See if you have a few friends that might open doors for us to place these kids. These kids are disadvantaged kids. These kids are kids that have had some problems, that are poor kids in many instances. So we have to first place them in because we don't want to have a kid sitting let's say, for example, if you are helping this kid and you're going to put him to work in your office or in your company, we don't want him to be sitting, doing nothing. I think we want him to learn something. That 20 hours that he's there, we want him to be something that would be worthwhile. So you can help us, or you can get involved in many of the committees that we have and contribute and see if it's something that you can do in order to help this individual, help us, and help yourself.
If you knew that you could not fail, if I were able to issue you an ironclad 100% guarantee of success for your next project, what would you attempt?
Well, I think I probably could. I probably will. Perhaps many people have said to me in many instances, "Why don't you get involved in politics? Why don't you run for office?" I probably will do that. I will probably.
What office?